In the Vatican, a sacred city, the streets are so jammed that the citizens think that God must be there on vacation. Gregory, however, prefers it this way. He's an atheist journalist, coming to the Vatican to report on the election of a new pope. He exits the taxi and walks the rest of the way toward the hotel. He checks in and goes upstairs to his room. The presence of some other terrestrial force is in every corner, even in his room. Afterward, he and his coworker, Amina, walk on a narrow paved street. She's far more excited about the atmosphere and history of this ancient place than Gregory. But before they can engage in a heated argument, they reach their destination. It's a huge light blue wooden door. The cameraman, Robert, who happens to speak fluent Italian, is waiting for them there, a short man whose intellectual prowess is mildly questionable. Gregory leans on the door, as Amina and Robert discuss the beauty of the Vatican. He gets off the door for a moment, looking at Robert all the while, and once he leans back, his shoulder meets only the air. He gasps and finds himself on the ground. The door was already open when he tried to lean on it again. A girl who opened the door from the inside leaps up from suddenness and apologizes over and over again. Gregory looks up at her as she offers him a hand to help him up. Once they are face to face, both lose their heads for a moment, forgetting where they were going and why. Silence falls, and finally, they both turn back where they came from. Their sanity returns then, and both swirl around in one theatrical motion. Gregory knows this is anything but an ordinary coincidence as he walks outside and watches her leave, but his pragmatic mind does its job well. And so, as they make their way up the stairs, he metaphorically expresses his opinions about engaging in a long-term relationship. The cameraman struggles to get a hang of it and seems oddly interested in the habitat of the beach Gregory uses as a metaphor. However, before they can straighten it out for him, the door opens and Robert goes forward, bending his tongue in an attempt to sound like a native Italian speaker. The woman in front of him, however, nods in approval and addresses everyone in plain English. She will show them to the balcony. As they follow the woman, we go back to the girl. Her name is Maria and she arrives at a monastery. She walks to the courtyard, greeting priests and nuns on her way. She seems quite familiar with this place. Finally, she walks up to a nun, weeping quietly. Once she catches a glimpse of Maria, however, her sullen expression changes instantly. She gives her the program for Friday and promises that they'll rehearse it tomorrow. She asks if Maria's mother is coming, but the woman seems completely against whatever is going to take place. We're not yet sure what ceremony they are preparing to attend. Meanwhile, Gregory and his fellow crew ascend the stairs toward a balcony overlooking the whole city. Amina gasps from delight once she sees the whole Vatican beneath her feet. Gregory, however, as always, ruins this moment for her with his cynical remarks. Finally, after breathing in the view of the Vatican with its all-magnificence, Gregory stands in front of the camera and they start shooting. He starts his speech normally, depicting the huge event that is about to take place in the Holy City. However, his true attitude toward this matter is soon evident. He ridicules all the fuss around a simple political decision that 100 wrinkled and well-dressed priests make. In the next scene, we finally understand what the conversation was about in the monastery. Maria is about to become a nun. She asks for advice and her reverend mother encourages her not to force herself to feel any special feelings during the ceremony. The inner peace comes only naturally, and years of careful seduction are necessary to finally feel at peace with yourself and with God. Back to Gregory, he and his crew are done filming. Now they discuss the future of their work. Gregory thinks that thieves, beggars, and the poor are the people Jesus himself would talk to. Interestingly, as if the God heard him, in the following scene, a little homeless kid follows him, asking him to buy an original nail from Jesus's crucifixion. Finally, once the boy's voice is starting to crack, Gregory tells him that telling lies is his profession. Suddenly, a stream of police run from the archway behind them and the boy huddles briskly inside a suitcase nearby. Then a policeman comes up to Gregory and asks him to move the suitcase if it's his. Gregory can freely reveal the kid inside, but he chooses not to. So, after the officers disappear in one of the corners, the boy jumps up from the luggage and gives him the nails as a price for his freedom. That evening, he arrives at the same door to go to the balcony. This time, Maria opens the door. Turns out it's her house. Gregory loses his wit again. Confused and awkward, he finally gathers himself and introduces himself. Maria offers to drink coffee then and both go to the kitchen. As the coffee is made, Gregory lets her know why he's here. For money, and almost as a joke, however. Maria doesn't seem offended at all. She calmly and elegantly wins the argument and leaves to take a shower. Gregory decides to go to the balcony and drink the last of his coffee there, but being close to Maria somehow makes him clumsy. He pours coffee over his shirt and runs inside to find a sink. Not knowing that Maria is in the bathroom, he opens the door and quickly looks down once he realizes it's vacant. Maria, not disturbed by any of this, tells him where to find a sink and sends him away calmly. Back in the kitchen, Gregory takes the first thing that meets his fingers and wipes his shirt with it, completely swallowed by the sight he just saw. After a minute, Maria comes out, covered in towels, and approaches him, asking if he's all right. He's not. His shirt is ruined, and he fails to notice it until he looks down. Finally, Amina walks in and frowns when she sees Gregory like this. They have to hurry for their next shooting. In the next scene, Gregory is wearing a different shirt, the one that emphasizes the irony in his tone. They are in jail to speak with the sinners, the condemned, and the solitary. No one ever asks for their opinion, which is odd in the city of the god that had a completely different attitude toward them. Once more, Robert twists and sprains his tongue, speaking in the fanciest Italian to a tattooed prisoner in front of him. But again, his struggle proves to be pointless. The prisoner turns to everyone, saying in plain English that he won't say a word without his lawyer. In the meantime, Maria is dressed as a nun for the first time. Her friends gasp right away as they see her like this. Maria seems nervous. It's weird to see yourself like this for the first time, knowing what it means and what it symbolizes. Back to Gregory, he's now engaged in a quite deep conversation with the prisoner, telling him about his bitter childhood trauma. Once he found a bird nearby his house, and since it was hurt, he took it home and took care of it. Then his father came home and, despite all the tears on his son's face, threw it from the window. And so, as the conversation continues between them, Maria embraces both her friends and thanks them for coming. One of them touches her face and suddenly, he gets a paper cut from the fabric. The other one laughs and jokes that Maria is now a bride of God and from now on, no mere mortal shall touch her. Meanwhile, now it's the prisoner's turn to share something deep. Finally, Gregory asks him about the Pope elections. It seems like he simply doesn't care. He has no respect and all left for the Pope and his pawns. On their way back, Amina tries to be compassionate with Gregory. His story about the birth seems to have touched her too. But once she glances at the expression on his face, she realizes that it was a lie. Mad at her innocence, she exits first and the others follow her out of the prison. Gregory walks home alone. A shining thigh grips his attention from a balcony. Thinking that it might be Maria undressing, he freezes in place, until he finds the girl right next to him. It's her mother that he's looking at so eagerly. He's caught, but he manages to get out of this situation clean. It's the pigeons that he's looking at, studying their behavior during this time of year. Maria replies with the same sarcastic tone that his parents must be proud of him, and this is the time when Gregory seizes his opportunity. He never knew his parents, and so he says. Their little play is instantly over as Maria tries to apologize. Somehow Gregory has the upper hand now. He makes one more joke, loosening the tension, and reassures Maria that it's fine. Eventually, the girl asks him if he's able to move from this place. It's difficult, she knows, with the pigeons and everything. However, she would like it if he went with her at. A honk overlaps her voice and Gregory can't hear the end of her sentence. She tries again, but right when she's about to say where she is inviting him, a terrible noise covers her words as if some otherworldly power is trying its best to interfere with their relationship. Finally, she decides to use nonverbal language, proposing to go dancing together. They hop on her moped, but suddenly they hear the engine whimper and go to sleep. Maria tries one more time and they cover a few feet, but again, the engine stops. Finally, on the third try, as Gregory leans on the back of the moped and takes his hands away from her waist, the engine starts to work perfectly. It almost seems like God wants Gregory to keep his hands away from Maria. In the following scene, after she tells him about her plans, Gregory wants to hear why she decided to take this huge step. It seems like she's eager to find something meaningful, something superficial and deep, in this world. She believes that the world has much more to offer than what meets the eye. Finally, they arrive at the dance, kiss the hand of a woman sitting at the entrance as is customary, and see her friends. The music starts, but Gregory remains outside of moving limbs, drinking and watching Maria dance freely, while pink neon light dances on her marble skin. Once she sees Gregory like that, she urges him to join her. Gregory can only resist her for a while, until he finds himself close to the girl, moving clumsily. The music changes and they move closer and closer until their lips are about to touch. Suddenly, before they can kiss, the speakers in the bar squeak hideously. The DJ shrugs and starts another music. It's not long until they attempt to kiss again, and God can only prevent it for so long. Their lips touch, but only for half a second, before the speaker catches fire, and everybody in the bar runs outside. Gregory and Maria go to the hotel where he's staying. Maria goes to get wine, while Gregory goes to his room. He's about to open the door when a series of weird events happen one after another. A painting on the wall suddenly falls, and once he bends down to pick it up, he notices a little monkey walking in the hallway, making its way toward him. It picks up his keys and runs away. Gregory is too dumbfounded to run after it. He just turns away to look at it vanishing in a corner. When he turns back, he sees Maria and jumps up in surprise. Going downstairs to get another key, he finds out that the whole system has broken down 10 minutes ago. The concierge explains that there's no way he can get inside his room tonight. Gregory, upset by his careless attitude, takes his phone in one hand and his wallet in another, saying that they both are worth a new hotel room, but both of them are snatched away from his hands instantly by two robbers on mopeds. In one surrendering motion, he smiles and goes back to Maria. Someone seems to be against them tonight. But surprisingly, Maria knows how to open these doors. She only needs two pointy things. Her eyes widen as she sees two nails in his atheist hands, but Gregory tells her not to ask. She opens the door and they go inside. This night she will be his, but only for this night. She tells him so and they both promise not to fall in love with each other. Usually, it's easy for Gregory, but as he looks her in the eye, we see a glimpse of doubt in his eyes. Maria's touch and her lips are too tempting though, so he makes himself believe that he will manage to easily stay true to his promise. He wakes up alone the next day, dresses up, and walks downstairs to meet his coworkers. A weird smile doesn't leave his face for a minute and it doesn't go unnoticed. The same thing happens to Maria as she walks inside the monastery. Nuns come to her left and right to tell her how much she shines and glows from fulfillment and happiness. Something has changed in both of them after last night. Later that evening, Maria goes up to the balcony where Gregory and his crew are sitting. She stands right next to her and casually says that he usually watches magnificent sunsets like this on a certain bench. She tells him the exact location of it as if she was casually making a conversation. But everyone on that balcony seems to understand the gesture. After she leaves, Gregory quickly shoots his piece and runs down to meet her at the location she so casually gave. He asks the cab driver to drive as fast as possible. The old man seems to sense why his client is in such a hurry, so he tries to make a conversation about it. Gregory sees an opportunity to test out the words he's planning to say to her. Once he gets to the bench, so he starts. His speech is wonderful, with the right amount of romance. The cab driver even leans toward him, mesmerized by his tone and the content of his words. Finally, the driver even tests out his kiss, leaning toward him until their lips touch. He approves it with an Italian passion and sends him away. And so, Gregory walks to the bench overlooking the city to break the promise he so eagerly gave a few hours ago. He's in love, there's no way around it. He knows if he hesitates or backs down, he won't get another chance. The feeling that arose inside of him is rare, and he will never forgive himself if he lets it go to waste. But he will have to try harder if he wants to get this girl. Gregory's mysterious opponent won't let him have her so easily. Suddenly, a black car stands in the way and he's taken away by special forces armed to the teeth. Inside the car, a well-dressed man speaks to him in Italian, calling him Giuseppe. He's thrown in a cell. Most of the way he had a bag impaled over his head, so he has no idea where he is. He spends that night in the cell with a wrinkled old woman as old as the Vatican itself, singing a song. The next day they free him and right away, he goes to Maria's house and sees her, fighting with her mother, who's against the path she's taking. Finally, Maria asks her to at least attend the ceremony, but the woman coldly refuses, so she leaves. Gregory runs after her, trying to make her believe what happened yesterday. Try convincing someone that special forces took you away for no reason to spend a night in a cell with an ancient lady. It's almost impossible. And so, his first attempt is futile, but Gregory doesn't back down. In the next scene, he follows her into a cafe. Maria is very upset. It might not be the best time to have this conversation. But Gregory still starts putting his heart out. It seems like he has forgotten his previous speech. He makes one simple witty joke about his superficial opponent to lighten the mood and then tells her that he never thought this was possible. Even though he promised not to, he has to say something. He opens his mouth to reveal his love, but words in some other language come out of his throat. Gregory attempts to say "I love you" several times, but to no avail. Finally, they try to read the subtitles to understand the meaning behind his words, but the subtitles speak of some elk prancing over the creek. He has to try telling her some other way. Body language might prove helpful once more. Gregory touches her hand and takes it away quickly when he sees the god, turning his head from the painting, and gazing directly at him in disapproval. Gregory holds her hand the second time, then the third, and fear creeps up on him. It's not a joke anymore. The god is looking at him. Maria's patience is slowly fading. Gregory tells her to look at the painting, but naturally, the painting remains unchanged. Now Gregory looks like a crazy man. The All-Father played well. Insulting him proved to be a bad idea after all. Maria has had enough. She's not in the mood of playing games, so she storms off. Gregory tries to go after her, but a metal door is shut in front of him. He's finally convinced that God exists. He looks for her in the streets. Walking and burning in anger, he sees a banana skin on the paved road in front of him. He's joking at him from above, Gregory realizes. So he speaks to him out loud in rage, dancing around the banana, shouting that he can't get him this way. As four men behind him look in astonishment, Gregory's crew arrives and he stops abruptly. It seems like his patience is running low as well. In the following scene, they are interviewing a dying man. All that he wants is the last gin fizz, but they won't give it to him. Gregory says that he understands him, since for the first time in his life, he really wants to get something. But so far, he's been unable to reach it. Suddenly, his head becomes dizzy and he passes out. Meanwhile, Maria is in the monastery. Seeing doves makes her a little better. But once she raises her head and looks in front of her, the picture that she sees is so dreadful that her throat closes and the blood freezes in her veins. It's a lifeless nun from the ceiling. And while Gregory gets a procedure to determine what's wrong with his head, the other nuns tell Maria that the Reverend's mother had a secret love affair. They found out, and that is why her lifeless body is being carried away in silence as they speak. Maria fears this might be her end as well. A kind of madness seizes her at that moment, and she tells both of the nuns why her skin was glowing that day, and leaves. She will not spend the rest of her days here, surrounded by those narrow-minded people. Back to Gregory, the doctor has dreadful news. A tumor inside his brain is growing so fast that the image of his brain is blurry. Neither its shape is ordinary, it weirdly looks like the face of Jesus. Nothing can help, his death is inevitable. Now there is zero doubt in his mind that God has a hand in this. He exits the doctor's office, asking everyone not to follow. He needs to be alone now. In the next scene, Maria's mother makes up with her, proving that the mother will always be there when her child needs a tissue to wipe tears away. Now Maria knows and her mother approves that love has influence everywhere and no monastery wall can stand in its way. That night Gregory is transferred to another room. It's a bathroom with a bed inside, but he stays anyway. Maria mourns her reverend mother the next day, while Gregory sleeps in his mildly comfortable new chambers. A knock on the door wakes him up. It's Maria and he shuts the door swiftly. How can he tell her about his condition? The second time, he opens the door and keeps it open. She proposes to get some fresh air. Before they get into the elevator, Maria tells him what happened to the nun yesterday. The other nuns are so narrow-minded and it seems like she's having second thoughts. But this is not why she's here. In the elevator, she finally says the words that Gregory wanted to hear the most. She says he's in love with him. She feared this moment would come, but now there's no use in opposing it. Now is the time they should lean closer and kiss, but weirdly, the expression on Gregory's face is unchanged. He gets out of the elevator before her and starts moving quickly toward the door. Maria makes him stop and explain himself though, so all he can do is to be sincere. It's not easy to say that God will kill you if you keep trying to get the girl you love without sounding completely crazy. But Gregory attempts to say it anyway. Maria doesn't get it though and they continue their conversation outside. Gregory avoids saying it directly and Maria is unable to understand who is so eager to keep them apart. Finally, Gregory breaks and says that it's God and now Maria's patience is gone. He must be making fun of her. How can God be jealous of him? She sums up everything that Gregory says and he finally understands what his version of the story sounds like. But he's not convinced. The tumor looked exactly like Jesus. Maria will have no more though. She's fed up with his craziness and cowardice. She kisses him once and then leaves, saying that this is the last kiss he is ever going to get from her. Now that the chances of them being together are fewer, the god begins to back down. As Maria disappears from his vision, the robber appears from behind, returning his wallet and his phone. Once he gets back inside the hotel, the well-dressed man gives him money and flowers and even the concierge transfers him to the best room they have. It seems that God is trying to atone for his crimes against Gregory. He walks around in his new suite soullessly. No gold, fanciness, or view can change the way he's feeling now. He sits down and soon, tears start drifting down on his face. He makes the man at the piano stop and goes to bed. In the following scene, Amina and Robert visit him, astonished by his new suit, not understanding how it all came to be. The doctor calls him then, telling him that it turns out he doesn't have a tumor. Amina is over the clouds from happiness, but Gregory's face remains motionless. He knows what's happening. He feels like a mouse, already beaten and powerless, while a cruel cat keeps on playing with him. He even tells Amina that if the cardinal came here now and invited him to report live from the Pope's election, he wouldn't be surprised. A moment passes and then God proves to have a great sense of humor. The cardinal knocks on the door. In the next scene, Maria is drinking with her mother and her friends. Her mood is unchanged, but suddenly, when her friend stops making the worst toast ever and points at the TV, Maria leaps up and gets closer to see it better. Gregory is shown on every channel. She turns it off quickly and tells everybody about her decision. She's leaving tonight to go to the other end of the world, Vietnam, since it is the most atheist country in the world. No matter what, she can't stay here in the Vatican, where every stone reminds her of her lovesickness. Meanwhile, Gregory is taken to attend the election with his crew. Everything seems ordinary here. They even have a dog. Amina explains to them how everything will go down. The Pope is already elected as it seems. However, after Gregory interviews all the cardinals, they will act out the election process for them and finally, he will interview the new Pope himself. The whole world will watch him live. It must be the greatest moment of Gregory's life, but yet it isn't. The new Pope comes into the room then, introducing himself to him. Finally, out of all the moments, the camera's batteries choose this one to die. Robert runs from the room to fetch the spare one, while Gregory and the newly elected head of the Catholic Church go out in the yard to have a conversation. If anyone would understand him, it's the new Pope. So he tells him how he got this job, that the girl he fell in love with turned out to be the god's favorite as well. That God became his #1 opponent, and he pretty much won. It's a lovely story in the Pope's opinion. Meanwhile, Maria gets into the cab. Vietnam is her new destination. Back to Gregory, the Pope mentions Freud out of nowhere. According to him, Gregory might be just shifting blame to an elevated father figure. He's afraid to enter a committed relationship, so he imagines that God is doing everything to prevent it. It's an interesting theory even though it sounds very simple. And when Maria and her cab driver enter Rome, the Pope explains to Gregory that we can sacrifice everything and expect nothing in return. It's the worst deal, but it's love and it is worth it. Unexpectedly, he embraces him firmly and this is when Amina runs to them, shouting that Robert brought the new batteries. And so, they make their way into the building again to start shooting. They are alive and all the eyes in the world are directed at Gregory, including the eyes of his previous cab driver that happens to transport Maria as well. He recognizes Gregory and turns the volume up. Gregory knows that 1.5 billion people are watching him right now, but what he is about to say only concerns one with whom he only shared one night. But that one night was enough to turn his whole life and sanity upside down. He began believing that some otherworldly power was interfering with their relationship since this new feeling was so potent that it almost scared him. The cab driver begins to cry at this point, knowing that everything he says is true. Gregory adds that now he understands something. He knows that humans are more than what meets the eye. They are not only dealers, but they can give something out without awaiting favor in return. And this is why he must ask that girl to be with him. He backs down, gives the microphone to Amina, and says that she will be conducting this interview, the first interview of her life that will be the beginning of a great career. And so, he walks out. Now he knows where to wait for Maria's answer. Near the bench, he notices the kid that gifted him the nails, sleeping. Gregory approaches him, takes out the check that the well-dressed man gave him, and walks off. By the evening when the kid sleeps it off, he approaches Gregory, who's sitting on the bench, still waiting for Maria. Something great has happened to the kid and he's so eager to share with other people. He tells Gregory that he never believed in God, since it is the only way to stay reasonable in this crazy city. But now he believes in the existence of higher power. His grandmother is dying and his family needed an enormous amount of money. Somehow today he woke up and found a check worth 10,000 euros. How can one deny the existence of God after that? And this is when Gregory understands what God is. A sad smile stretches across his face then, and once the kid catches a glimpse of it, he assures him that the same God that gave him this money will surely give him whatever he desires too. Meanwhile, Maria is sunk into deep thoughts, while the driver remembers the words Gregory told him that day. Finally, she tells him to bring her to the bench and he frowns in surprise. In the next scene, Maria walks up to Gregory, dragging a suitcase with her. She's here for two reasons. One is to give him a message from the taxi driver. He admires him and the kiss that they shared will be forever with him. However, Gregory shouldn't be sad, since he has found someone more suitable for him. The second reason is that the person more suitable for him might be her. And so, this time when their faces get closer and they kiss, no godly powers interfere. No fires start nearby and no special forces drift from the corner. It seems like God has fallen in love with someone else, a Spanish girl named Juanita, and no man's hand shall touch her from this moment. Maria and Gregory, however, are forever free to be together.